in about 15 minutes to pray. Love you.
Love you too, James. You weren't talking to me, were you?
Pretty much.
No.
Is this 11 or 12?
Oh, 12.
12, okay.
Yeah. Chapter 12.
12.
Teams, communication.
Second one on teams, yeah.
Okay.
So maybe a few intro thoughts, and then I have some questions for you.
Hey y'all, Mike Rogle here with Organizational Behavior. This is chapter 12, I believe, which is team processes and communication. So in chapter 11, we went out and we formed and stormed and normed and performed and adjourned, whatever. We did all of our team formation. We got all of our teams together and we've thought through those processes intently. And now once we have our teams together, what do we do? How do we operate? And that's what team processes are. They're the stuff that we do that help us to work towards the goals we're trying to accomplish. And so now we're trying to figure out how we behave and communicate together. I'll give one quick example and then we'll move on to our conversation with James Avey and lecture part of this video. But let's start with just a quick example. So we talked about types of teams last time, right? Let's focus on a management team that I was a part of and just some regular, what we used to call rhythms that we were a part of, ways of behaving consistently and communication that we had with each other. So every single morning we had, it wasn't a standing meeting. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but it was a kind of sit-stand meeting. We actually sat around as an executive team and in our CEO's office. And every single morning we had a quick, hey, what's the hit list on today? Any urgent issues? Really quick 15-minute, maybe more if needed meeting. And then every Monday we would have our weekly executive meeting where we would really talk through how are we performing to our overall strategic plan. And why we got together once a week was we wanted to make sure that we were adjusting to any sort of, urgent needs that were occurring. And we would drive those down through our work teams and our parts of the organization. And then every other Tuesday, we'd get together with our all staff. And so we'd pull together everybody at every location. We'd have video, everybody in production, everybody in the offices, everybody in our agricultural firms. We wanted them to hear from the management team or the executive team what was occurring in the industry, what were some adjustments that we needed to make, and how we were performing overall and things to expect to come down the pipe. We didn't want our employees to be surprised by anything. So every other Tuesday, we would have an all-staff meeting. And then every single quarter, we would have our strategy offsite. And so that would follow from our annual strategy offsite that would happen just before, about a month before May, so sometime in April. So sometime in April, we would go and we would plan out our year, make sure it was aligned to our long-term strategy, everything else. And then every single quarter, we would get together and make any sort of readjustments that we needed to the plan. And then again, going backwards planning that, then every single week we'd get together and make any small tweaks, and every single day we would talk about our overall just daily execution and things like that. So those were the regular rhythms that we used to make sure that we never, and again, we would get off track, but that we limited the likelihood of us getting off track as a team. We tried to make sure that we utilized those rhythms to where we were not staying in a state of inertia. We were always trying to make sure that whatever direction we were going was aligned with our end goal, which was long-term sustainable profitability of the organization and hitting certain metrics along the way. Now let's move on to our conversation with James Avey.
First thing is when we think about this stuff is to distinguish in our head groups and teams.
Got it.
By definition, teams are interdependent, meaning they need one another to do their jobs.
Yeah.
Most of the time, What you have is a work group and a manager who wants them to behave like a team.
Yeah. Explain the difference.
And they're just not doing it. Yeah. Everybody has their little jobs, and they don't require a lot of other coordination and communication. I mean, I'll give you a great example, and that's us in academics, right? We have a handful of management professors. If we work together, share information, stuff like that, we can actually do much better at our jobs. But we're not really needed. It's not required. We're really just a group, right? If we operate as a team, there's better things. That doesn't work in the NFL. If the wide receiver does not go out, the pass is not going to be completed. Right. If the linemen decide not to block, you're not going to have a play, right? So they actually need each other. That's more of like an actual because
their roles depend on each other. Our roles don't depend on each other.
Exactly. Yeah. Your job doesn't depend on me doing my job, right? So,
but I could, for example, I could invite you in.
Right.
Make a team environment.
Hey, look at this.
To enhance our product.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the first one going into it, because you treat them, like I say, you treat them a bit differently.
Right.
So with teams, there's a few kind of things to hit that are common. One of them is, and it happens if you've ever had a group project in any kind of school or anything like that, it's called social loafing. And it's always fun to watch, because I think you can see it too as a professor. Like if you visit a team project, I don't assign a lot of them for this reason actually, but you can tell right off the bat. Like in one group, I've got a driver, someone who is just going. They're getting after it. No matter what the people in their group do, the person's gonna think these are lazy. I'm having to carry them along, etc., etc. So there's differences in tenacity and just drive. But sometimes you do have just straight up social loafers. Some people work at a slower pace. Some people are just slacking because they know they get their C or they get their minimum raise or promotion and then move on. Sure. So a few prescriptions on that, but one of them should be obvious. The bigger the group is, the more social loafing you're going to have.
Just from a percentage standpoint. Or just from a hiding standpoint.
Yeah, you can hide. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, good idea. I like his idea. That's my contribution. So smaller the teams.
I love being that guy.
Right. Smaller the teams, the less likelihood of social loafing. Second, the more visible the work breakdown structure, the deadlines, the less likelihood you'll have of social loafing.
Right.
At the critical point, if it's really bad, meaning if you really need the person's contribution, you can bring in authority, supervisor, stuff like that. But at that point, trust is broken.
Right.
And it's going to when they have to call the professor and say this person's not working when you talk to them. I always say no, like you talk to them. Here's your chance to step up. If you want me to, it's just going to be awkward from here on out.
So smaller teams, short cycle outcomes.
Yep, short cycle outcomes, highly visible.
Yeah.
So if you're on a team and they don't already do this, set up just Google. It's called a work breakdown structure. Everyone's name is assigned to every task, and there's a due date on each one. It's crystal clear. It's really hard to hide. This product with this form was due on May 6th. It's May 6th. Where is it?
Right.
No excuses, no hogwash, kind of the management by objective stuff.
And what James is covering there with social loafing falls under the term process loss. That's when the outcomes of the team are less than what would be expected based off of the capabilities of the individual team members. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to limit the chances based off of how we communicate and how we behave. We're trying to limit the chances of process loss occurring. And what we're trying to accomplish with the formation of our teams, right? We want to have a purpose, a reason for why they exist, is process gain. That's when the outcomes of the teams are greater than what would be expected based off of the capabilities of the individual team members themselves. So by the nature of the team, we're hoping to increase the likelihood of process gain, having a greater likelihood of achieving our desired outcomes, whether it's within a better time frame or whether it's with better quality. I've been incredibly fortunate to be coached and mentored by a large group of executives over my career. One of those executives that I got to hang out with the other day was a CHRO, or a Chief Human Resources Officer for a Fortune 500 company. So he was an executive at a pretty large organization, and they did teams and leadership incredibly well. They were very intentional about how they managed their teams. And we talked a little bit about this process gain. And his continuous feedback through me during our whole time is focus on how you can harness all the capabilities of that team to create more than what those individuals could accomplish on their own. And in his experiences, when they formed good teams, when they had good team processes together, that every time teams would outperform individuals throughout their organization. And that's what makes this part of our studying, this part of our organizational behavior class so vital. That we do talk a lot about individuals and how individuals behave. And that's, certainly how we form teams and how we drive those teams will help to influence individual mechanisms, that their abilities to get a work through and then to drive performance. But I want to make just this strong note. Getting this right, doing this well, can help to increase your overall performance as an organization.
I'm assuming on those, even in large teams, small teams, people's roles matter on those teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm a fan of bureaucracy. I know that sounds really weird.
It does sound weird.
But when I say bureaucracy, I just mean where there's a clear line of authority.
Right.
There was a big push, in the late 90s, early 2000s on self-managed teams. Mm-hmm. And everyone's going to be a self-managed team. It's like, it's just hard because you have smart people with good ideas that don't see it the same way. And somebody at some point has to say, this is the direction.
Right.
And when that's not there, it's kind of a challenge.
Right.
So the role of a leader,
right.
I also, when I build teams, I try to come up with a better term. It's more like critical analysis is what I call them. Mm-hmm. But it's really the role of the naysayer. So we'll go through
devil's advocate.
Yeah, I want someone to tell me why this is wrong,
right? For sure.
Why this is illegal, why it's unethical, why it's unwise, why it doesn't make business sense, like whatever stuff like that. And once you've had everybody contribute, it's groupthink, right? No one's thinking that way. Right. So I want one person to tell me this isn't going to work.
Right.
And if we all sit here and say, no, boss, this is perfect, well, then we're not moving.
Right.
Because there's no such thing.
And boy, does it take a lot to build that environment of trust to actually naysay.
Yeah, you got to reward it.
Yeah.
Especially when they point out something really good, like you got to reward it.
Yeah, for sure.
The other one that I'll do a lot is my boss taught it to me, and I just find it helpful. It's just around the room.
Right.
And this is mine and out, some of the introverts, personality stuff we talked about. So go through the agenda, everyone's functional report out, like whatever you need to get done. And it doesn't matter if it takes 3 or 4 minutes, at the very end of the meeting, every single person gets a say. Mm-hmm. Is there something you wanted to say you didn't? Did we forget to get to something? Just go, you good? You good? I actually got this from boss's boss, a guy named Alan Mulally, who was then being CEO of Ford and then at Google. And it was just a ritual that he built in. Everybody gets a say. And the big idea was to prevent groupthink, which maybe we can talk about next, groupthink, where we all get going in one particular direction. There's so much inertia that when someone can spot the obvious problems, they're looking around going, I'm not going to go against a group.
Right.
Yeah, sure thing. That's good.
It's hard.
It is really hard.
And you can get ostracized for going against the group.
That's why it's up. This is a management training class, right? So that's why it's up to the manager to reward that really quick.
Right.
And elevate it. Don't ridicule it. Like we need that.
What if you're in a group, and this is just, so going back to, so you may be a manager of, let's say you're in a production environment, you got 25 people, 20 to 25 people. So it's a pretty hefty supervisor to employee ratio. Team. But it happens a lot.
Yeah.
So then you want to have people who are work on different parts of the line to get together in teams and to work on problems. So you may associate, or you may delegate some, not all the review authority, not all the compensation authority
teams
to a team lead.
Yeah.
But they don't have all the authority in the world.
Yeah.
Have you seen those work out within smaller, especially if you're trying to break into smaller groups and you're trying to delegate some authority but not all?
So a few things on that. One of them, it depends on, do I want to engineer it? Is there a particular person I want in that role and I need to engineer it?
Right.
And then you have to put a little bit of groundwork of elevating that person first.
Give them some job enrichment.
Right. Yeah. But if not, if I'm happy with the existing structure, I'll just try to identify who's probably the one that's most respected.
Right.
Who's the one people are going to listen to, or not the one that I like, but the one that they're already following.
Yeah.
So that can be, I think that can be helpful. So one of the things I wanted to talk about at the end, but it kind of fits in here. There is a theory from 1956, George Homans, is called Activities, AIS, Activities, Interactions, and Sentiments. And I love it. It's so simple. There's a million different kind of applications for it, but the big idea is if people do things together, this is why I take executives whitewater rafting, right? It's like better decision making. No, it's not. You push people together, you get them to do an escape room, or you know what I mean? Like something, it forces interactions, and you're rolling the dice because the interactions might be, well, I hate that person, but I like that person over there. But 10 minutes ago, I didn't know either one of them, right? So you're forcing those interactions, and that develops sentiments. At that point, you can start to see
low stake interactions.
Low stake interactions, yeah, and you can start to see affinities like beginning to grow and emerge. And that's fun. The other one, I can't believe we have to have a word for it, but the word is propinquity. How's that? There we go. That's a big word for the day.
That's the worst word I've ever heard.
Propinquity. Write that one down. Propinquity is like this. If you are just getting here, right? It's a lot of syllables.
Yeah.
If you're just getting here, and I want you to eventually to replace that person who's been here for 25 years and retiring.
Planning, yeah.
Succession planning, knowledge transfer, cross training, all that kind of stuff. It's not complicated. Your desk is next to his or hers. Mm-hmm. That's all propinquity is.
That's propinquitous.
It has to do with geospatial. Yeah. If you put people together, you'll force interaction. Yeah. So you can do this if you have dueling divisions, stuff like that. Your operations and your finance are pissed off at each other. Guess who's the new bunkmates? Yeah, you guys are hanging out.
Super cool.
It'll either blow up or get some information sharing.
Pretty cool.
So I like that one.
Awesome. So we get our groups together. Mm-hmm. We've got maybe some team leads. We got small groups. Short cycle of performance on all those groups
where possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've got some roles as leads, but everybody's got to do tasks in the group.
Yep.
Maybe explain a little bit of like things that occur when you got task conflict.
Yeah. Maybe before we get to tasks, there's task conflict, people conflict. One of them's really good, one of them's really bad. You can guess what they are. Yeah. But a big piece of this has to do with task clarity. Mm-hmm. As a manager, it's one of our first jobs. Things are going to fall apart if people don't know what's expected of them. And it happens all the time. Well, ask a manager, does this person know their job from consulting? Of course they know their job. I talk to them, tell me your job, tell me that person's job. No. Mm-hmm. Well, I told them. Yeah, I understand you told them. You communicated with them in a way that you thought they would get, and they didn't. Mm-hmm. So you didn't communicate as good as you thought, or they don't understand your type of communication.
Or you don't understand the job.
That's totally. So first one, task clarity, role clarity. Do people know what's expected of them? You can use binary communication for that as a manager all the time. It's a great question. Tell me what you're working on. Like, I know what you're working on, but tell me what you're working on and how it fits in. Mm-hmm. And if somebody can't respond to that, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. So you know what's happened. Second one is where you put your. You remember like back in grade school for the extroverts anyway. Your teacher would say, "Put your listening ears on."
Oh yeah.
Did you ever get that? Yeah. Put your listening ears on. Like,
what?
I don't have those. Yeah. Your listening ears in group meetings and water cooler chat and whatever it is. Yeah. What if people are griping, and it's fine to gripe? What are they griping about? Are they griping about people? Are they griping about like tasks and technology and stuff like that? Mm-hmm. I will look for an opportunity to engage if they're griping about people. And then I'll gripe about people privately to some of my friends like you. But on the team, you don't gripe about people as much as possible. And it's human nature. And I don't mean like, oh, you bad, gossiper. It's human nature. Right. Where you can focus in on the task, complain about the task, then you can rally people to solve the problem. Right. But it's hard to rally people to solve a person. Right.
How do you? I don't want to say shut that down. How do you start training your people just through your interactions on those types of things? When I come to you and go, "Oh God, Bob."
Yeah.
I got to tell you all about Bob.
Yeah.
Bob's on our team, and I'm going to complain about Bob. All the
time. So it's going to depend on the trust in the relationship, right, and the relationship that you have with the person. But the first one's pretty obvious. Like, if what do you want me to do with this information?
Right. Great HR question.
And they're like, you just want me to know this? Okay, I know it. Like, are you good? And even if it's a friend, I mean, imagine you doing that to me. Like, we've been friends for a long time. You're like, what do you want me to do with that? I'm like, I don't think I need to say this to Mike anymore. Like, it would come in. So that's one thing. I don't want to shame them, but just show there's no utility in this. Second, if it's someone that they need to work with, you go, you can raise it. You're almost like sort of a bluff here. Oh, do we have a conversation with you and I and Bob? Yeah. And then you're actually gonna have to be honest with Bob. Right. Are you sure you want to do this? Right. Like, oh no, we'll work it out. Okay. Yeah. Let me know if it's not worked out. Yeah. So I mean, those are.
And then you might follow up
a couple of
2 days later. Say, hey, you work things out with Bob.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think whether you're a manager or whether you're in human resources, going back to your job is not to be the white knight to save somebody's day. to go and go, oh, I'll fix that problem with you and so on.
Yeah.
So ask questions about, what do you want to do with this?
Right.
But the whole outcome should be trying to reconcile as best as you can
Yeah.
to make sure that you have people who are in a trusting relationship. Can't control it.
Right.
Trying to set the stage for that to occur.
And
To your
then
question,
there's
Steve.
there's the desires, and then there's sufficiency. The desires is you're gonna get along. Maybe you'll laugh once in a while, and it'll be a good relationship. But sufficiency is you're professional and you do your job. There's no knowledge hiding.
Right.
Right. There's no sabotaging. Like that kind of stuff. I mean, I feel like you gotta.
I may not
gotta
expect to be
pounce
best
quick.
friends,
Yeah.
but I expect you to work
Yeah.
together.
We all should do that. Yeah.
Cool. Communication models.
Yeah, maybe just one quick story on this. I had a guy that kind of poured into me, mentored me at Boeing. He would meet with his boss every Monday morning, and he would meet with us on Tuesday. Wednesday we'd meet with our teams. We met again with him Thursday, and he used Friday to prep for his Monday meeting. And he said, "We have to know why you're doing it." He did two things with his meeting, with his communication structure. His team was fascinating. This one was top-down communication as fast as possible,
Right.
and down-up communication as fast as possible, because he was right. He's reporting the President of Boeing commercial, and he was, once a week he'd get the upload or get all the information from him, where we're going, budgets, whatever it is. But nobody else can move fast enough to get the information up until
Right.
it was an emergency.
Right.
And then it was just panic. And by the time you panic to the president 4 or 5 times, it's like, do you know how to do your job?
Right.
So he would just shoot it down. He'd be like, tell me what we need. Tell me what's good about this. Tell me what's not.
Right.
Filter it back up to, first level of management. Go, okay, I agree. I disagree. Filter it up to him. He'd filter it, and he's right back. He's usually within a week.
Quick cycles.
It was a great scenario because
But on a regular, predictable rhythm.
regular, predictable rhythm, and he was sensitive, I think, to people have like a need to know. No, people feel like they have a need to know. It's one of my pet peeves. I was like, just mind your business and do your job, right? Like you don't need to know what this other person was meaning about. But some people feel, and they feel like if they don't know, then there's some big secret and they're being kept out of it, stuff like that.
FOMO.
So
Sounds like higher ed.
right, but this guy was really sensitive to it. He's like, I'll tell you everything that I can,
Yeah.
and it's coming at you.
Yeah.
So you would get a weekly download from the president,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, and made more authentic, like not the email out to the whole company. This is what they said.
Right.
This was who it pissed off. Here was
Right.
the implication. So that's one top down, which most people get, but down up.
Yeah, for sure.
We basically put tools in his hands to communicate. So that was good. The second one, and I loved this. Call them. Do you ever use stand up meetings? Oh man, 5 minutes. So everybody start today at 7. You can go pee at 7:05. You're in my office at 7:10. You're out of my office.
Yeah.
So he did it with me. I started doing it with my team. I was like, of course, it was right afterwards, right? So I'm at like 7:15 or whatever it is. But 5 minutes stand up. Come on in, and eventually somebody sits down. And you're just like, no, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be here that long.
Yeah.
This is, and it really is. What do you got going on today? What do you got going on today? Everybody, and everyone's like, oh man, in this scenario, okay, who's gonna help him?
Yeah.
Okay, she's gonna help you. Okay, that's it. You guys, you get back to me by noon to let me know if you need anything.
Right.
It was awesome. It changed dynamic because imagine everyday conversation with your manager, invested in you, trying to make sure you can get done what you want to get done.
Radical.
So we did that from him too. It was a great
Setting the
culture.
stage for success.
Yeah.
Radical.
Anyway.
What's the best way to build teams?
Yeah, that's the AIS piece. So I told the story a little bit earlier, but there's leadership concepts which we'll get to I think later in the book about vision casting and stuff like that. But the more you can get the person committed, they do this in the military really well. The person committed to who's on their right and left, more than committed to you, big fat win. Loyalty's great, makes you feel good as a manager, etc. But if you can, whether through propinquity or through other activities, whatever it is, if it's, hey boss, we're gonna go out and we're gonna do ultimate frisbee at lunch, I'd be like, be late coming back.
Yeah.
Like that's a big fat win right there.
For sure.
Yeah.
The person that you need to.
Yep.
Yep. Cool. All
Awesome.
right. Teams.
Peace.